So I'm sure most of you are aware of the tragedy that recently took place in Texas. And by recently, I mean yesterday, May 24th. An 18-year-old distraught individual carried out a mass shooting at an elementary school. This is probably going to be a little bit of a hard one for me to get through, to be fair, because I am, as a father, this really hits close to home. I got pretty emotional this morning when researching for this subject, just because it is really heartbreaking. I think the first thing I'll do is I will show you just the pictures of the people who died. I mean, you have like little children, little kids. I mean, we're talking about like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. Like, Jesus fuck, dude. There's no mass shooting that is good or that would be preferred. But like, killing adults is still horrific. It just adds so much more weight to this when you realize that these small, innocent kids were gunned down by a fucking crazy guy who didn't even go to their school. I read one story about a 10-year-old girl who was shot and killed while just trying to call 911, which is just super terrifying and tragic in and of itself, trying to call for help, and the shooter killed her in the process of her trying to call 911. We also have teachers who passed away as well. I think there were 2 teachers killed. Both of them died heroically trying to protect their class and their students. So just take a look at these faces, and these are the children, these innocent kids who had their lives brutally stolen from them because some sicko scumfuck subhuman was essentially able to get access to guns. Very emotional, specifically just reading about the 10-year-old girl and the teachers who had kids of their own and who died just trying to save their students. It's really emotional, really heavy shit. And I'm not going to pretend that it's anything other than. It's really horrifying. So first, let's go over a little bit of information about what happened, why it happened, and then what the solution is to these things. So, hold on. The first thing to note is that the shooter, named Salvador Ramos, who thankfully was killed in the middle of carrying out his shooting, legally purchased his weapons. That's the first thing that you need to know. He legally made this purchase. He was able to buy this weapon on his 18-year-old birthday. 18 years old, this dude was able to walk into whatever local fucking gun shop and legally purchase a weapon. Now, part of the problem was that he didn't have a criminal record. So the first problem you have there is, would a background check have prevented this? I don't know. But this is why, if we're going to do background checks, I think you also need to do mental health evaluations as well. I think you need to do mental health evaluations as well. There needs to be a wait time on these weapons, and it just cannot be as easy as it is to get a weapon as it is right now. So, the 18-year-old gunman who opened fire at a Texas elementary school, killing at least 19 kids and 2 adults, bought 2 assault rifles just after his birthday this month, and appeared to send some ominous Instagram messages hour before the massacre. Salvador Ramos was described as quiet by numerous people who knew him. A young woman who worked with him at Wendy's until March detected an aggressive streak. Several former friends said he had stopped showing up at school and was not going to graduate with the senior class this year. There were definitely some serious warning signs about this individual, and the fact that he was given not one but two assault rifles at the age of 18 is unfathomable and despicable in every conceivable fashion. And before some chucklefuck jumps up here and goes, "My Second Amendment," we already put restrictions on weapons. For example, you, God-fearing white gun owner, cannot go purchase a grenade launcher. You can't run around with a bazooka because there are some restrictions on weaponry. You can have your Second Amendment all day, every day, but that doesn't mean the Second Amendment allows guns for everyone and anyone whenever they want them, regardless of their age or their mental well-being. So he would be very rude and threatening towards some girls at his school. There would be videos of him at the park trying to fight people with boxing gloves. He would literally like carry boxing gloves with him. And he was angry that he didn't graduate. He got into an argument with his grandmother, and then he shot her, and she was screaming, "He shot me, he shot me," the neighbor recounted to Newsy. I am not currently aware if the grandmother was killed or if she was just shot. There was a former friend who said that they were close with Ramos until his behavior started to, quote, deteriorate. He said Ramos, who was often bullied over a speech impediment that included a stutter and a lisp, once cut up his own face with a knife just for fun. I mean, I don't want to make a joke here because this is such a heavy topic, but like, holy shit, this dude went full Joker mode. He took a knife, cut up his own face for fun. These are some red flags going off in my book, okay? This is the kind of guy that I'm thinking, I don't know if I want this person running around with a deadly weapon. I'm pretty sure I don't want this person running around with 2 deadly weapons. Another friend said that he used to egg people's vehicles and shoot random strangers with a BB gun from a car. This kid had a serious violent streak and also appears to be significantly mentally unstable. First, he shot his grandmother on Tuesday morning. He then crashed his car near Robb Elementary School. Police pursued him as he ran into the school wearing a tactical-style vest. As soon as he made entry into the school, he started shooting children, teachers, whoever was in his way. He was shooting everybody. So this guy didn't even go to this school. He was mad that he wasn't going to graduate at his high school and went and shot up an elementary school. I mean, goddamn. Hours before the shooting, an Instagram account that appears to have belonged to Ramos sent direct messages to a teenager in Los Angeles telling her he wanted to share a little secret, according to screenshots. A TikTok account with the same handle and profile picture, also taken offline on Tuesday, featured only a clip of a mobile game and the line, "Kids be scared in real life." This is just sickening and terrifying in every conceivable way. Texas senator said he'd been briefed by state police that Ramos, who turned 18 on May 16, legally purchased 2 assault rifles. So a lot of warning signs before this tragedy took place. A lot of indications that this person is insane, deranged, psycho, and should certainly not have 2 deadly weapons. Certainly, he shouldn't have been able to legally purchase 2 deadly weapons that he then used to kill 19 elementary-aged kids. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the worst school shooting since Sandy Hook. Now, there is further outrage as well because 1 year before this school shooting took place, Texas expanded, quote-unquote, gun rights. And one of these rights, quote-unquote, that was expanded, one of the laws passed last year authorizes so-called constitutional carry, which means law-abiding Texans, 21 or older, no longer need a license to carry a handgun in public. Not even a fucking license? Doesn't the Second Amendment say a well-regulated militia? Not even a fucking license to carry a handgun in public. This is Wild West. This is the Wild West right here, guys. All in the name of my gun rights. Another new law made Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary state against new federal gun control regulations. Other laws made it legal for hotel guests to store firearms in their rooms and allowed gun owners to carry firearms in their holsters of choice. So this is why Texas has come under increased scrutiny. Because you no longer even need a fucking license to carry a handgun. You can have a handgun so long as you're over the age of 21, walking around your local Walmart in Texas, spinning that little sucker around, yeehaw, without a license. No license needed, you know? Because my Constitution and my Second Amendment. This is disgusting. It's despicable. And the fact that now over 15 children have been murdered brutally for doing nothing but living their lives is not only heartbreaking, but it is just, it's unfathomable and it is unacceptable for our country. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world. The fact that Republicans want to now force more children into the world by restricting abortion, while simultaneously refusing to take action in regards to making sure those children that they forced to be born aren't getting shot while going to school, is disgusting. And right away, right when this took place, you had members of the GOP jumping up and screaming in their shrill little whiny voices about how, don't make this political. Why do you always have to politicize this? Because guns are a political issue. Because you restrict gun violence with policy. That's politics, my dude. I know for you chuckle fucks, getting down on your knees and saying a prayer to your imaginary sky daddy is A-okay. That's good enough for you people. But for some of us, we want to see an actual change take place. And you do that via legislation and policy. And that is intrinsically political. That is a political issue. So anybody that starts whining about politicizing this issue is being dishonest. If it involves guns, if it involves death, and if we are already recognizing that laws are supposed to be encoded morality, we're supposed to be coding morality with laws, although far from perfect, then we are going to have a political conversation if something this heinous and immoral takes place involving guns, which is a political issue. I don't understand how this is so complicated for the GOP, probably because they realize that they're the ones who consistently try to reduce any form of restrictions on guns, who are paid the big bucks from the NRA, and so they kind of have to go back and, you know, give off their little talking points. Why are you making this political? Because it's a political issue, you fucking degenerate. That's why. Now, for a little while, I was sort of wishy-washy on the gun control issue, but this event caused me to do a little bit more digging into this, into the gun restrictions. Do they work? Do they not? You've heard people say that, well, more people having guns will actually reduce gun violence. That's probably true. I don't think it's either or. If you are a responsible individual and you have a gun, I don't think that gun is going to grow legs and go shoot people. The problem is right now is that we have people who are not responsible, and we have very little ways, it seems, to determine if these people are responsible, that are then able to access guns. So, not only do you have the GOP bitching about the making it political, you also have some of these cunts whining about, well, this is a mental health problem. Specifically Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll go over some of the responses in a bit. But I'm really sick of acting like this mental health problem and gun issue. I'm really sick of acting like the mental health crisis and the gun violence crisis is somehow a dichotomy. It is not a dichotomy. You can address both. So, for example, mentally ill people who are unstable to the degree of carrying out a violent attack on an elementary school shouldn't be able to access the guns. There you have a mental health problem that coincides with the gun problem. This is a multifaceted issue, and when people present this as if it's a dichotomy, in a way, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, it's kind of a red herring. Now, instead of talking about the solution, we're arguing over whether or not it's a mental health problem or a gun problem. It's both. If you are mentally unwell, you shouldn't be able to have access to a firearm. If you are mentally unwell, you shouldn't be able to access something that allows you to carry out your deep unwellness on the rest of society. This is so easy to grasp, obviously. Now, furthermore, it's not a mental health crisis in the sense that, well, the individuals that go out and carry shootings, they just had some mental illness problems. Let's just, shed a tear and move on. There is a mental health crisis in America. And just to be clear, I suffer from mental illness myself. Okay, I have depression and anxiety and OCD, all right? Name it in that regards. I probably have it. But just to be clear, I'm not saying if you are mentally unwell, like have depression, that you shouldn't be able to get a gun. But if you're mentally unwell to the point of exhibiting signs of psychosis or a disregard for human well-being or lacking even basic empathy, you should not be able to access a gun. So we need to address the American mental health crisis because that is just a fact that it's happening. Especially during COVID, you can see that the mental health issues have skyrocketed statistically. So this isn't just like a lone wolf who had a bad day and decided to carry out a shooting. We have a crisis here in America across the nation when it comes to mental health specifically. And again, as I've already said, we also have an issue with people who are mentally ill to the point of being fucking deranged, having easy access to a firearm. I think, and I'm kind of pulling this out of my ass, we'd have to see how this would work, but I think that if you're going to purchase a gun, you should have to take some kind of a mental health evaluation. I think that if you are in therapy, for example, you should have a fucking therapy note. A note from your therapist that says you are cognitively fit to responsibly own a firearm. And I think that if you don't have a therapist, you should have to go through some kind of mental health evaluation. I'm not a policymaker. I don't exactly know what that would look like, but come on. I know here in Maryland, if you have a marijuana card, you cannot purchase a gun. Now, I kind of think that's sort of lame because I don't think that having marijuana means that you're not cognitive enough to own a weapon, but I see why that was done. And although I don't really totally agree with that version of it, I agree with the sentiment. And it's a good idea. If you are licensed to legally have medical cannabis, then you probably shouldn't be able to be licensed to have a weapon. Maybe you're going to get high as shit and go out on a killing spree. Marijuana doesn't really work like that, but again, the sentiment is there. There is a possibility we can do something to ensure that mentally ill sickos aren't getting their hands on deadly weapons to then go and murder innocent children. I mean, just look at these pictures that are coming up on my screen right now. These are teachers. These are parents. These are families that are torn apart because some sicko was able to access a gun. Because this dipshit, this deranged subhuman filth who is lower than dirt, was able to go and purchase 2 AR-15s on his 18-year-old birthday. How would policy change make any significant effect due to the fact that most homicides are committed with illegally obtained firearms? Is that true? I thought it was legally. I could be wrong. There are various different ways, but the first thing that needs to start is making sure that you're not legally purchasing a weapon while also having severe psychosis or a mental health condition to the point of making you incapable of responsibly owning a firearm. So what is the solution to this? What is it? What's the answer? Because I hear people talk about gun control. Every time this happens, people bring up gun control. And I understand that because it's a policy, but it's not just gun control. As I was saying a minute ago, it is both gun control. And when I say gun control, I specifically mean gun reform. I don't mean take away everybody's guns and never let them have them. I think that there are ways that you can regulate gun ownership and make it far safer while also respecting the Second Amendment. I do. I think that that's very possible. Gun reform will help, but that also needs to coincide with addressing the mental health crisis. So we're going to go over a few statistics and a few facts as to why this is the case and why I believe that this solution is a good one and seems to be really the only valid solution we have left. So here was a study conducted in 2016 in Oxford Academic. What do we know about the association between firearm legislation and firearm-related injuries? Firearms account for a substantial proportion of external causes of death, injury, and disability across the world. This is not just in the US, this is across the world. Legislation to regulate firearms has often been passed with the intent of reducing problems related to their use. However, lack of clarity around which interventions are effective remains a major challenge for policy development. Aiming to meet this challenge, we systematically reviewed studies exploring the associations between firearm-related laws and firearm homicides, suicides, and unintentional injuries/deaths. We restricted our search to studies published from 1950 to 2014. Evidence from 130 studies in 10 countries suggests that in certain nations, the simultaneous implementation of laws targeting multiple firearms restrictions is associated with reduction in firearm deaths. Laws restricting the purchase and access to firearms are also associated with lower rates of intimate partner homicides and firearm unintentional deaths in children, respectively. Now, this goes into detail about how there are limitations in this study, and that makes sense. But having a systematic review where they take into account multiple studies and try to see if there's a general consensus is definitely better than just having one or two studies that are hard to replicate or whatnot. So this is the first thing. Put some damn restrictions on it. We're already okay with that. Americans are already cool with there being some level of restriction on gun ownership. They're already chill with it. We need to push against this, my guns. Guns are so cool. It looks so dope with me holding my gun in my Instagram picture. So long as it's a white person. Of course, if it's a black person, then that means they're a thuggish gang member. But we need to get rid of this my guns culture and instead focus on a culture that views guns as a weapon and as a tool that can be used for good and can be used for bad. Instead of focusing on, I want to have guns. No, I want to have guns. We need to instead focus on, how do you have guns responsibly? Because that is left out of the conversation. And there is an American culture that's very focused on my guns. How many people do you see? How many Republicans do you see that show pictures of them and their entire family holding their big rifles? Like it's so cool. Like it's just an aesthetic for these people. This needs to change. So this is what we can do policy-wise. We need to try and shift our attitude towards guns on a cultural level, and we need to address mental health. I'd like to show this article as well, which includes a very good statistic and a chart that really brings this into very clear gives a clear example. What the UK and Australia did differently after mass shootings. So the UK has some of the world's strictest gun ownership laws, and it is now rare for civilians to own private firearms. The turning point for the country came in 1996 when 43-year-old Thomas Hamilton used legally owned handguns to kill 16 children, all ages 5 and 6, as well as a teacher, before taking his own life. Holy shit. I mean, I have a 3-year-old daughter, so yikes. That is terrifying. There was a turn in the tide of public opinion, and there was a revulsion against guns. So there was a cultural shift. We were flooded with so many offers to help. So they worked too. Let's see. The UK held a public inquiry into the shooting, which resulted in 28 recommendations to tighten gun control legislation, many of them centered around improving the licensing system. Eventually, the Labour government banned the .22 caliber guns as well. Gun homicide rates are 25.2 times higher in the US than in other high-income countries. Now, this is data that comes from 2010, and in a moment, we're going to look at the way that the Scandinavian countries handle gun restrictions and the issue of mental health. You'll see here that Sweden falls very low on the list compared to America, but just to be perfectly clear and honest, Sweden is currently having an issue with gun violence, but it's not school shootings like what we're having here in America. It's gun violence related to gang violence, issues in that regards. So I'm not sure how accurate these stats are currently. Of course, it's going to be hard to find statistics on gun violence in the year of 2022. Sweden is having its problems right now with gang violence and gun violence, but it's still leagues below America when it comes to the rate of gun homicides that we have here. You can see America is massive. The US is massive. Leagues above any of these other countries. Maybe this is what Republicans mean when they say, dude, America's number one, bruh. America's the fucking best. America's number one. We're the winners again. Yeah, number one in gun violence. Congratulations, cucks. And then look down. You'll see that Finland is significantly lower. You'll see that Norway is significantly lower. You'll see that Denmark and Sweden are really significantly lower. I'm focusing on these specifically because these are the Scandinavian countries. And the Scandinavian countries not only have really strict gun laws, they also still have ways that people are able to use guns for the sport of hunting. And they also have ways to better address mental health. It's been known now for quite a while that the Scandinavian countries have far better rates of mental health and happiness. And despite what some groypers will tell you, because some of them tried to bomb my tweet that I made yesterday, it has nothing to do with it being mostly a white country, LOL. No, it's because they have stronger social safety nets, which is what I advocate for as a social democrat. They have better ways to address mental health. Somebody responded, wow, Hunter, they have a bare fraction of our population. Of course it's lower. No, these are gun-related deaths per 1 million people. This is per capita, my dude. Obviously, yes, if you just said more gun deaths in America compared to a place with 2 people, America bad, that would be weak. But this is comparing it to the same level of standards here. Gun-related deaths in high-income countries per 1 million people in 2010. So maybe that was just an innocent mistake, or maybe you're just stupid. But either way, try to read, buddy. Try to keep up. So To combat the effects and frequency of poor mental health stemming from COVID, world leaders are increasingly looking towards Scandinavia for inspiration. The region has long boasted impressive mental health services, including free mental health ambulances, which drastically reduce suicide rates. What's more, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark virtually eliminated the mental health stigma that plagues most countries, including the US. So, we talk about a cultural shift being necessary when it comes to guns. There also needs to be a cultural shift here in America in regards to the way that we view mental health. How many times have you been told that it's weak to be depressed? You have anxiety, bruh? Pfft, you sound like a fucking weak beta. You just gotta swallow it and keep moving along, bitch. This kind of shit is nonsense. It's bullshit. And it does nothing but worsen the situation. If we want to accurately address the mental health problem and lower the rates of gun violence in America, gun restrictions are needed on top of addressing mental health across the board. And you know what? We can do that with a public option for healthcare. This is what the Scandinavian countries have. They have free healthcare that also provides free mental health counseling. This is why Scandinavian countries are happier, have better mental health, and have consistently scored the highest when it comes to polling on well-being, happiness, and contentment. It is because of their strong social safety nets. And it's because of the way that they culturally view mental health. We can fix this problem. America's issues can be improved. But we have to get away from this idea that, one, it's against the Second Amendment to put some kind of gun restrictions on. Two, it's against America values to put some gun restrictions in. And three, that it's somehow weak to acknowledge that you're dealing with mental health issues. Oh yeah, and four, stop calling any kind of boosting in the funding for social safety nets socialism. Stop. Don't do that shit. So, this is, although surface level, my idea and my understanding of what would be most effective in lowering these rates, these gun violence rates. Here's one more statistic for you. Now, keep in mind that the US is also lower than some countries. Third world countries, that is. Well, at least we're not as bad as Brazil. Look, guys, at least we're not as bad as El Salvador. Okay, come on, America's not that bad. Shut the fuck up. When we compare America to other developed countries, America is beating all of them in gun violence. Something needs to change, and I feel that I have posited the thing that needs to change. Now, of course, you have other people that have their own opinions on how to fix this issue. And their opinions are trash, brain dead, and delusion. Let's go over some of these people's trash opinions. Now, of course, you have some people who claim that the issue is not actually a problem in regards to how easy it is to get guns, or how we have a mental health crisis problem, or how those things kind of intersect to create this problem we're dealing with now. No, instead, you see, if more people just followed my imaginary friend, the world would be less violent. Liza Elizabeth, who I hope to debate again at some point, and is probably one of the most idiotic individuals to walk this planet, I'm sick of hearing it's a mental health problem or a gun problem. It's a godless society problem. Ah, yes. That makes so much more sense. If only there were more thoughts and prayers. If only. It's rather curious that Republicans and conservatives never seem to apply this logic when it comes to abortion. Why are you guys content with school children getting slaughtered while hiding behind, well, thoughts and prayers, what can we do? Just reach out to Sky Daddy. But when it comes to abortion, why don't you pray that one away too? Huh? Why don't you lift your voice up to prayer and jubilation for all the fetuses that are getting killed? Republicans, you seem real quick to legislate on that one. But when it comes to the gun issue, maybe we should wait till there's another mass shooting, or maybe I'll just wait until it's literally my child that gets killed. I don't know. I'm going to be a little slow on this one. So this is one of the worst takes I've heard, which is also not empirically demonstrated whatsoever. I have some other ones too. Pray for the victims, families, and community. The killer was Salvador Ramos, 18 years old. Did he cross the border illegally? Our nation has a serious national security crisis evolving. God help us. So, very cute that the conservatives now want to try to blame this on illegal immigration when the dude was here legally. He was a U.S. citizen. So, nice one there, pal. Bravo, yeah. No, let's not actually address what the real issue is. Let's just blame the brown people. It's not my guns, America. It's my brown people. The Browns did it. If their skin is darker, they're probably responsible. What a big brain take from Code of Vets. Amazing. Impressive, actually. That somebody could confidently make this kind of a tweet while doing such minor research and then just simply reading the dude's name and then seeing that he's brown and deducing, well, it's probably an immigration problem. Then we also have this one, which actually comes from a lefty. And not like a lefty, not like a liberal, but like a fucking Marx says we need our guns so that we can rise up against the capital owners. Can we have one fucking media cycle without a mass shooting being over-publicized so the price of ammo stops going up? Yeah, that's true. You know what? You really got your priorities straight here, honey. Some people are mourning the death of their children. Some people are really sad that their child was murdered on a regular school day. But I get it, What about the price of my ammo? I got it, At least you have your priorities straight. If I were you, honey, I would get off the internet and prioritize going to therapy. That's not a joke. Actually go to therapy. And I would prioritize maybe finding your father. Because the fact you would confidently make a tweet like this in the middle of a tragedy tells me that you are clearly unwell. In fact, I think a tweet like this, if we're talking about buffing up gun restrictions, a tweet like this might be enough to deduce that this person is mentally ill and not capable, not responsible to have a firearm. FBI, get 'em, boys. And then, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene. It wouldn't be a day ending in Y if Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't say something ludicrous. Our nation needs to take a serious look at the state of mental health today. Okay, I agree with the first part. Sometimes meds can be the problem. Sometimes meds can be the solution also, right? America is failing our youngest generations from decades of rejecting good moral values and teachings. Right, okay. We don't need more gun control. We need to return to God. Oh, yeah, man. That would solve everything, Get down on your knees and start praying to Sky Daddy. I'm telling you guys, I think if we all just pray, if we thought and prayer enough and hard enough, we can just telepathically make change, Next time, an active shooter walks into an elementary school, we'll just pray that God puts a hedge of protection around those small, innocent children. You know, just pray for the hedge of protection, guys. God can do it. Now, what's interesting here is that if this shooting was prevented, if a tragedy was avoided, you'd have chuckle fucks like Marjorie Taylor Greene get up and say that, praise God, God saved us. But then when a shooting happens, well, it's just our fault for not following God. Or it's just God's will, you know? No matter what happens, there's some way that you can just tie this back to God. And the whole we need to return to God thing is especially disgusting to me because although it's subtle and although it's implicit, it is literally a form of victim blaming. Because now you are saying the reason that Americans are disproportionately being affected by school shootings and massacres, it's our fault for not following Sky Daddy. That's why this happened, you see? Because it's all on us. Because not enough people went to church. Not enough people paid their tithes. Not enough people decided that being gay is icky cause the Bible, cause my God. It's disgusting to me. And even more so, there is no consensus on God. How do I know that God exists if God exists outside of the realm of possibility and outside of the realm to be tested? Why would God provide us with brains and the ability to reason and the ability to explore the natural world and give us logic and the access to tools like the scientific method, but then exempt himself from those things? You're telling me that God not only wants us to follow him so that we don't perish in hell for all of eternity, but it's our fault for not following God that school shootings are occurring. While God is simultaneously not allowing himself to be discovered or detected in any meaningful way by humans? Really? It sounds like your God is a complete jackass. Furthermore, not only is there no consensus on God, there's no consensus on what this God wants. Ask a radical Muslim in a third world country, and they'll tell you that what God wants is for them to go blow themselves up. Well, that's not what your God wants, is it? There's no agreement on God or what God wants. We don't know what God's morals even are because he doesn't tell us. God either doesn't exist or doesn't want to be discovered. Because a God who would allow school shootings to happen because we don't believe in him, while simultaneously not allowing himself to be discovered by the scientific method or by the means that he has allegedly provided for us to discover things, is an idiot. And truthfully, that's not a God that I want to know. So this whole we need to return to God, even philosophically, makes no fucking sense. But guess what? It also doesn't make any sense empirically. That's right. These Scandinavian countries don't only have higher levels of happiness and lower levels of gun violence. They also happen to be the most secular places in the world. Now, you still have a somewhat large religious demographic there, but they have a massive amount of people who identify as either unaffiliated, not really religious, or just flat out atheist. So when you make it sound as if this is our fault for not believing in Musky Daddy, not only are you a dumb fucking cunt, you're actually just provably wrong. Get out of here with this bullshit we need to return to God. It's nothing but a cop-out for these politicians to hide behind. Now they don't have to do anything. Instead, it's our fault because I didn't go to church enough. So here we have Pew Research showing that U.S. gun suicide and gun murder rates have increased in recent years, but they remain below past highs. Here you have the 70s. You had a pretty big spike here around 72. And then it dips down, and then it takes another really big spike throughout the 80s and the early 90s. Damn. I wonder what the religiosity level was in America during these times. It would be a real shame if it was still really high, wouldn't it? Uh-oh. Well, I'm seeing here that from the 1987 until 2003, religiosity actually was growing. It seems that when people were asked the question, I never doubt the existence of God, 69% of people polled from 1987 until 2003 said they completely agree. 59% of people during the same time frame completely agreed that we will be called before God on Judgment Day to answer for our sins. 51% completely agreed that prayer is an important part of their daily life. According to Pew Research Center. So, if only we would return to God, last I checked, during this spike, starting around, it looks like 84, 85, that really took a massive peak over an 88 throughout 96, was when religiosity was growing. You cannot claim that we need to return to God if I'm able to look at statistics where we were, quote unquote, returning to God while simultaneously gun murders were rising. You can't do it. It's not empirically grounded. You have no justification for it. It is now nothing but your personal opinion. It is now nothing but, well, if everybody just bought into my personal little pet belief, then, everything would be better. No, you're wrong. You're lying to yourself and everyone around you. If you think that the solution here is return to God, it's not. Again, according to Pew Research Center, U.S. murder rates skyrocketed from 1987 until 1996. During that same time frame, religiosity and the belief in the Christian God was rising, not declining. So tell me, cultists, how do you justify now hiding behind my God if it seems as though your God has done jack shit? It seems as though no matter how many times we give our big, heartfelt thoughts and prayers, God never does anything. You know? Even more so, the Bible says that faith is dead without works. So you can't just have faith that God is going to do something. You need to take steps yourself to make change. America remains an intensely religious nation, and if anything, the trend since the late 1980s has been toward stronger religious belief. 8 in 10 Americans, 81%, say that prayer is an important part of their daily lives. Get the fuck out of here with this go back to Sky Daddy and everything will get better thing. It won't. Not at all. Even more so, we have available research that shows that atheists are not more immoral than Christians. In fact, they are both moral at the same degrees. We also have studies which show that when people are told that violence comes from God or from the Bible, they're more likely to actually engage in that violence. They're okay turning a blind eye to violence if it's in the name of their religion. And it's this kind of bullshit that is sickening. It does nothing except for cast the blame on victims of these tragedies. Politicians don't have to do jack. Now it's just our fault because we didn't believe enough in a God who seems to not want to be discovered. The entire situation is sickening. I just hope that we can do something about this. I highly doubt things will be done because the nice thing about America is that no matter how many kids get brutally slaughtered at their local schools, we won't really do anything. Maybe Texas will take steps to be like, well, now you see, to fix this, we got to make sure that even 6-year-olds are able to have guns. Okay? 6-year-olds, you got to fucking get a gun, all right? That way, if anybody starts shooting, you can shoot back. Good point, chat. God has left to get cigarettes, and we're still waiting on him to come back.